We have entered World War III. World War III has begun.
Wars have captivated our imagination and inspired many Hollywood movies. Many people fear that our world will one day nuke itself to destruction. But is that starting to become a reality?
I hope not.
And which country do you think would support whom if the dreaded World War III ever happened? Let's find out, shall we? Wars have been part of the human story since time memorial. According to research, there is some evidence Homo sapiens were responsible for causing the extinction of their close cousin Neanderthal through physical aggression.
In November 2020, evolutionary biologist and paleontologist Nicholas R. Longrich said that although it's tempting to think the two groups might have got along, biology and paleontology paint a darker picture.
Remains of these prehistoric humans showed various signs of trauma to the skull resulting from a blow to the head using clubs and spears stacked in the chest. There are many reasons people go to war. Some are legitimate, some absurd. An investigation of some Neolithic skeletons found in the Tauhan death pit in Germany suggests that prehistoric people from neighboring tribes brutally fought and killed each other to capture and secure women. A legitimate cause from an evolutionary and biological perspective. Some biological theories suggest that humans are genetically prone to war for reasons such as status and belonging. Would you ever have thought that a slain pig could lead to a full-fledged war?
Ridiculous.
And between nations at that. But it did happen. In 1859, Great Britain and the United States fought the Pig War.
This is insane!
Yes, we were surprised too. To war, some say, is human. But some battles are capable of carving names for themselves. The British commonly used the war in Britain to refer to the Second World War, an event that caused brutality and carnage at a level unseen in written human history. This war was the catalyst for creating the United Nations, an organization responsible for maintaining world peace, security, human rights, and a better standard of living around the globe. Whether the UN has been able to live up to its task, we will address that later on in this World War III update. It was estimated that the death toll from the Second World War, directly or indirectly, was responsible for the death of some 70 to 85 million people. Most of the casualties were civilians. The horror of this war pushed humanity to transition from the use of arms in settling disputes to diplomacy, a gentle and more humane approach, usually brokered by the United Nations. An undisputable remnant of the Second World War was the creation of an invisible partition of the Eastern and the Western Bloc.
Europe is found divided into two blocks and separated by what is called the Iron Curtain. In Germany, Allies merged territories they control in violation of agreements signed with the Soviets. In response, the Soviet Union imposes a blockade on West Berlin, which is still under Allied control.
The Eastern Bloc was composed of socialist states of Central and Eastern Europe, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, under the control and influence of the Soviet Union and its Marxist and Leninist ideology. In contrast, the Western Bloc had the United States and its NATO allies, also known as the Capitalist Bloc. This clash of ideologies ushered these blocs in the Cold War. The Cold War era saw arms and nuclear weapons proliferation, the space race, psychological warfare, proxy wars, etc. But luckily, the Cold War that ended in 1991 didn't lead to any direct confrontation between the leaders of the two blocs, the United States and the Soviet Union, now Russia. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, there has been constant geopolitical tension between Russia and the United States. Many believe this brewing tension may lead to the much-feared World War III. Exactly how this war may come about and by whom is a mystery we will soon unravel in this video. Remember to subscribe to our channel if you haven't, for exclusive access to more unique content and perspectives like this. Regarding the United Nations Security Council, it appears that it has a structural weakness in its architecture.
Because the United Nations has become a platform for countries to abuse each other, a forum for world leaders to impress their domestic audience and tell others what to do.
The notion of veto granted to the so-called permanent members, namely China, France, Russia, the United Kingdom, and the United States, is the Achilles heel in this international body. This privilege would be abused on countless occasions by these members, either to protect their interests or the interests of their allies. This glaring undemocratic feature has led to enactions against war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by permanent members. Any permanent member can do crazy things and protect himself with a veto against any consequences that will emanate.
It's incredibly unfair.
For example, Russia's action in Moldova, Georgia, and Syria was never sanctioned by the United Nations. The United States is equally guilty of these allegations after invading Cuba, Vietnam, Iraq without any reasonable justification. The U.S. went to war with Iraq based on assumptions and miscalculations, yet the UN did nothing. These precedences are why the world can't trust the United Nations to guard world peace effectively.
You know how hard it is to trust people.
We wonder, what happens when there is military confrontation among all or some permanent members? What will the UN do then? It may already be too late. The dreaded World War III might have already begun, and it has in the hindsight of the world. Has history taught us nothing at all? World War I and II started similarly. Almost no one saw it coming. The drums of World War III began beating in 2014 with the annexation of Crimea by Russia and its ambition of installing a pro-Russian puppet government in Ukraine. As usual, Russia got away with its crime with impunity as it did in Georgia, Moldova, and Syria. In recent times, Russia's justification for the recent invasion of Ukraine is Ukraine's quest to join NATO, which Russia considers a threat to her. But why doesn't Russia see North Korea and China with the same spectacles? Shouldn't Russia be more concerned about North Korea, which constantly tests missiles or mass destruction? Or is it quiet because they share a common trait of practicing totalitarian regimes?
Right now, Russian forces are setting their sights on the capital city of Kyiv, advancing to the doorstep of that city.
Anyway, the invasion of Ukraine is still on with heavy shelling and bombardments. Putin has refused to call it a war or invasion. He would instead call it a military exercise. His counterpart on the other side, Joe Biden, has been busily drawing red lines that could result in a full-blown World War III should Russia cross them in their recent tantrum. When Russia attacked a military base near the Polish border, the world was at the brink of this world war. It is only a matter of when Russia will cross this red line. Should things get heated up, you might wonder the kinds of weapons nations will resort to. Don't be surprised to see the old-school tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, drones, fighter jets, conventional and cruise missiles, laser-based weapons, torpedoes, aircraft carriers, sonic warfare, cyber warfare, etc. We know what you are thinking.
They launch nukes.
Yes, nukes are on the list, but they will be the last resort because of the devastation they would cause. Hopefully, the war may not escalate to that point because it will mean an end to civilization and the human race as we know it. With Russia, China, North Korea, Belarus, and Iran on one side, and the United States, other NATO members, Finland, Sweden, Israel, Japan, and possibly Ireland on the other, most African, South American, and Asian countries would merely become spectators, helping with food and raw materials over time. How close or far away do you think World War III is? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Until next time, get yourself a strong bunker.